Why is letting go of emotions so difficult? Deep down, we're not just trying to forget a person, we're trying to erase a part of ourselves that once existed with them. People often say, just give it time. But if that were true, why do some wounds from years ago still bleed? The truth is, time doesn't heal. Awareness does. And that is especially true for unresolved emotions. If you don't face the real reason behind your lingering pain, if you keep running from it instead of moving through it, that bond, even if the person is long gone, will quietly shape your life. Letting go isn't just about stopping thoughts of someone. It's a psychological restructuring. It's when you sit down, look clearly at the image you've been holding on to, identify what's truly keeping you stuck, and start to untangle each knot, not through forgetting, but through truth. This journey isn't easy, but if you're ready to face it, here are 7 lessons from Carl Jung's philosophy that will help you truly let go, not just of that person, but of the illusion you once called love. Lesson 1. You're not holding on to the person, you're holding on to the image you created. You may think you're hurting because of someone, because they left you. After all, the relationship ended. But the truth is more painful and profound. You're not hurting because you lost that person. You're hurting because you lost an image you built in them. And no one can help you move past that except yourself, if you're willing to face the truth. Carl Gustav Jung called this projection. He wrote in The Philosophical Tree, "The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside, as fate. When you love someone intensely, it's often not their true self you're seeing, but a reflection of yourself in them, unfulfilled desires, unnamed fears, inner voids you hope they'll fill. When a relationship begins, especially when it starts from deep infatuation, what you're seeing isn't just their eyes, their voice, or every familiar gesture. You're weaving together an image, a romanticized character you believe understands you, belongs with you, or even is your destiny. But that image doesn't truly reflect who they are. It reflects pieces of your soul that you unconsciously project onto them. Jung called this the projection of anima and animus, the unconscious gender archetypes within us. If you're a woman, you might love a man not for who he is, but because he touches your inner animus, the idealized masculine figure you've carried for years. And vice versa, men often fall in love because they see their inner anima, the ideal woman within them, reflected in a real woman. Think back to the last time you loved someone so intensely that you lost yourself. Were they as perfect as you thought? Or did you feel more special, more important, more seen because of how they treated you? Often, what we love isn't the person, but the feeling we get when we're with them. The feeling of being validated, chosen, and needed. The sense of filling the silent emptiness inside. But if that's the case, you don't truly love them. You love the part of yourself they made you believe was healed. And that's why, when they leave, the loss feels devastating. You didn't just lose a person, you lost a part of yourself that had been given to them. Jung put it plainly, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When you see someone as too perfect, too compatible, or later as too cold, too cruel, don't just look at them. Turn inward and ask, what in me created this feeling? What am I projecting? Because love isn't blind. Real love must come with awareness. Without that, you're only in love with a dream born from loneliness and unmet emotional needs. Someone once shared, "I can't forget them because I feel like I've lost a part of myself. Before I met them, I always felt invisible. But with them, I felt alive." It sounds romantic, but in truth it's frightening, because it means you handed the power to define your self-worth to someone else. And when they're no longer there, you collapse, not because the love ended, but because the false self you created lost its anchor. This is the result of prolonged projection, when you fail to realize that the one you loved was merely a mirror reflecting a part of you you hadn't yet seen. Letting go, then, isn't about disconnecting from the other person. It's about reclaiming the energy you used to build an image that was never real. That's why the pain after a breakup sometimes lingers, even when they've completely vanished from your life. Because that image, that dream, that perfect role, they're still alive in your mind, fueled by every memory, every replay, every breakup is often mistaken for love. But if you look closely, it takes a different shape. Panic, emptiness, fear of abandonment, fear of being unwanted, fear of being unworthy, unless someone else loves you. Real love doesn't torment you like that. Jung wrote in Psychology and Religion, "To confront a person with his own shadow is to show him his light." That means only when you dare to face your darkness, the hurt parts, the rejected parts, the buried parts from childhood, can you truly step into your light. Think back to the relationship that hurt you the most. Did that person do something terrible to you? Or did they unknowingly awaken an old pain that's been inside you all along? Maybe they went silent when you needed them to speak up, and the childhood wound of being ignored flared up. Maybe they left you easily, and the trauma of being abandoned by a loved one years ago replayed like an old scene. The reason it hurts so much isn't necessarily because they were so special, but because they touched a pain that was already there. This is what Jung called a complex. In The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, he wrote, "A complex is a psychic fragment which has split off owing to traumatic influences or certain incompatible tendencies." Traumatic experiences, even ones you don't clearly remember, still exist as energy fragments in your unconscious. They resurface when a present relationship touches that crack. That's why you react so intensely, why you suffer so deeply, because you're not just reacting to the present, but to unresolved pain from the past. Letting go of someone, in this case, isn't simply cutting ties. It's the beginning of a deeper journey, healing yourself from the root. If you were ever neglected, compared, judged, or made to feel not good enough, you'll be prone to loving someone just to prove that this time you are worthy. And when that relationship falls apart, it's not just the person you lose, it's the return of the belief that I'm not enough, now stronger than ever. Take a moment and ask yourself, why did I choose that person? Why does it hurt so much when they didn't choose me? Is it really because they were special, or because they brought back the feeling of rejection that's been with you since childhood? Jung once wrote, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." In other words, emotional disorders are often symptoms of deeper wounds we haven't dared to touch. What we call the pain of love is often not love at all, but trauma that never healed. If you're still with me, pause for a few seconds and place your hand on your chest. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, is there a part of me from childhood trying to be heard through this relationship? Be honest. Recognizing that doesn't make you weak. It's the first step to becoming free. When you start to understand that the other person didn't truly hurt you, but only activated an unhealed wound in you, you stop blaming them, and you stop blaming yourself. You begin redirecting your energy inward. You no longer expect others to fix you, but begin learning how to sit beside the child within you, the one who was once ignored, hurt, or forced to earn love. There's a true story from someone who went through this process. My boyfriend left me after 3 years. I thought I was devastated because I lost him. But during a therapy session, I realized I didn't just lose him. I lost the feeling of being chosen. I had been carrying a wound from when I was 8 years old, when my father left the family without a word. Since then, I've always loved people who could leave, hoping that this time they'd stay. That story is not rare, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. The real tragedy is that so many people never realize they're reliving the past through their present relationships. They only see themselves as loving the wrong person, being betrayed, or always getting hurt. But if you're brave enough to step into your own awkwardness, you'll see clearly. The person wasn't the cause of your pain. They were the mirror reflecting what you hadn't dared to face. Carl Jung never promised that the path to self-awareness would be easy, but he always believed that only by entering the darkness can you find true light. In The Undiscovered Self, he wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. So awaken. Let go, not because you're exhausted, but because it's time to stop searching for someone to heal you. and start doing it yourself. Have you ever felt this? Loving someone so much it shattered you when they left, only to realize later that the pain didn't come from them, but from an old wound you've been carrying all along. If so, leave a comment. You're not alone in that experience. If you're ready, we'll move on to Lesson 3, where Jung reveals a hard truth. Not all intense emotions are love. Sometimes you're holding a cracked glass. You keep clutching it, hoping the person who dropped it will come back and somehow restore it to perfection. But the glass can never be the same, and the person who broke it, even if they returned, cannot perform the miracle you're hoping for. Holding on to it only cuts your hand deeper. What you need is not the one who broke the glass, but the decision to put it down and reclaim your uninjured hands. Many people stay stuck in relationships that have already ended, not because they don't understand it's over, but because they're still waiting for a different ending. A happy one, where the other person wakes up, comes back, and repairs what was shattered. But healing never comes from the outside. It's the result of you daring to look at what's deepest within, to touch the wound, and take ownership of it. A woman once shared that 5 years after being betrayed, she still dreamed of her ex, not because she still loved him, but because she secretly hoped that one day he'd message her and say, "I was wrong. You were the one." For her, it wasn't about getting back together. It was about hearing, "You were never the problem." But waiting for that is like locking yourself in a room with no door, where the only person holding the key is someone who left long ago. And more importantly, he never had the power to heal her, even when he was still around. If you're in that space now, ask yourself, do I miss them? Or am I just waiting for them to fix what they once broke? If it's the latter, you need to know that won't happen. And the beautiful truth is, it doesn't have to. Because you don't need anyone to validate your worth. You don't need anyone to come back and stitch up the past. What you need is the courage to stop handing your happiness to someone who forgot how to hold it. Carl Jung once said, "Your perception will become clear only when you can look into your soul." That means clarity doesn't come from apologies or someone's return. It comes from the moment you dare to look directly into your soul and say, "I will be the one to heal me, no one else." Lesson 4. Letting go is a process, not a decision made overnight. When you understand that the one who hurt you cannot be the one to heal you, you begin to reclaim control. But knowing is not enough. Letting go doesn't happen instantly just because you understand the reason. You may be clear-headed on a conscious level, but the unconscious, where emotions, memories, and neural connections live, remains stuck. That's why you can convince yourself you've moved on, only to hear a song, see a photo, or stumble on a memory, and suddenly all the feelings come rushing back, like the separation never happened. Have you ever experienced a moment like that? If so, take comfort. You're not abnormal. You're simply responding as any human mind would. Carl Jung emphasized this when he wrote, "The unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good. Not only dark, but also light. Not only bestial, but also superhuman. Not only demonic, but also spiritual." Psychology and religion. The unconscious doesn't just hold darkness. It holds the deepest emotional threads that once made you feel alive. And once those threads are encoded with memory and emotion, they can't be cut with willpower alone. Imagine your mind as a forest. Each thought, each emotion, each memory you repeat becomes a trail walked over many times. The more you remember, replay, and analyze the past, the more worn and defined that trail becomes. And even if you tell yourself you've forgotten them, a single trigger, a scent, an old message, a random image can pull you right back down that same path. This doesn't mean you're weak. It means your brain works through emotional memory traces, a fact well established in neuroscience. From his psychoanalytic perspective, Jung understood this long before it was proven in labs. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, he wrote, "The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains its equilibrium just as the body does. In other words, the psyche has its inertia. And if you once shared intense emotional bonds with someone, then letting go cannot be a single act. It's a process of retraining emotional neural pathways, a kind of psychological detox where you stop feeding energy to idealized memories and pain-linked narratives." There's a classic example from therapy. A patient, years after leaving her ex, was still haunted by what could have been if. Every day she replayed scenarios, analyzed the past, reimagined possible outcomes. She didn't realize that each time she did this, she was emotionally reconnecting to that memory. She was still unconsciously fueling an image that no longer existed. And it was that action, not the other person, that kept her stuck. Are you doing the same? Do you ever reread old messages, scroll through their profile, listen to your song, and tell yourself it's just nostalgia? But eventually, you'll reach a critical turn in this journey, the craving for a final word. One last message, one final meeting, one unfinished sentence said out loud. And you believe that only in that moment will you truly be able to close the chapter. But the truth is, you don't need to end things with words. You need to end them with action. Many people can't move on, not because they're still in love, but because they're still waiting for a final scene. A scene that makes everything clear, resolves misunderstandings, or simply brings the other person to admit, "I was wrong, I regret it." We grow up believing that everything meaningful can be processed through language, but there are inner truths that words can't reach. And the effort to say more, text more, hear more, is often just a disguised form of emotional clinging dressed up as seeking closure. Maybe you've written a long message, not to win them back, but just to make things clear. Or you thought, "I need to see them one last time to truly let go." But pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, why do you need that ending? For clarity? Or because deep down, part of you still hopes to be acknowledged, to be chosen again? Jung said, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Psychological types. The mind swings between logic and illusion, not between right and wrong, and it's in those irrational swings that we justify actions that keep an already broken bond alive. A final word doesn't bring closure if deep inside you're not ready to let go. Many people say their goodbyes only to fall into another loop. They think they're closing the chapter, but really, they're reopening it with emotions that haven't been processed. The closure they're looking for turns out to be another version of dependency. And Jung understood this. Some issues in the psyche cannot be resolved through conversation or reason. They can only be transformed through lived action. If you truly want to close the chapter, you don't need a goodbye. You need clear and conscious actions. Deleting the messages, not out of anger, but to keep your subconscious from spiraling back into memory. Unfollowing them, not from hate, but to stop them from occupying space in your mental energy. Changing your commute route to avoid memory-laden places, or starting a new habit during the hour you used to spend missing them. Each action is a clean cut, not painful, but firm. Because you can't walk into the future while dragging your feet through the mud of old memories. A friend once shared her letting go story after 6 years of unrequited love. She couldn't forget, even after distance. Every time she tried to move on, she thought, "I need one last explanation." Eventually, instead of reaching out, she taped a piece of paper to her mirror that read, "Clarity doesn't come from them. It comes from my decision to stop." Then she took one small action a day, deleting photos, unfollowing accounts, going to bed on time, journaling her feelings without sending them. 3 months later, she said something I'll never forget. "No one gave me closure. I just started acting like someone who had let go, and then I became her." Remember, no action is too small if done consciously. Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Collected Works, Volume 16. You are your actions, not your thoughts or your plans. So if you truly want to close this chapter, don't wait for another conversation. Let your actions speak for you. Be silent but steady. Walk away, not out of coldness, but because you're protecting the vulnerable part of you that needs rest. Have you ever believed you needed one last word to let go? What kept you hanging on in that moment? share in the comments, because someone out there might need to hear the story you're about to tell. And if you've come this far with me, get ready for Lesson 6, where we confront a difficult truth. You're not hurting because you lost them. You're hurting because you don't know who you are without the story you've tied to them. Letting go isn't just releasing a person. It's reclaiming the identity that once revolved around them. Lesson 6. Face the void and recreate yourself. There's a strange moment in the process of letting go that no one warns you about. It's not when you cry, it's when everything becomes quiet. A silence that holds no more tears, no more hope. They no longer message you. You no longer check your phone first thing in the morning. Your heart no longer aches at the sound of a familiar song. But what replaces all that? A vast, still emptiness, like a room abandoned long ago. And you stand in the middle of it, not in sharp pain anymore, but not quite healed either. It feels as though you've just fallen out of a story you lived in for too long, and now you have no idea what to write next. This is the quiet turning point, where you're forced to face one fundamental question: who am I? Longer living to please them, what do I want to live for? If there's no one to chase, where will I return? Someone once told me that after letting go of a 10-year relationship, what broke her most wasn't the missing, but the realization, I don't know who I am anymore. She had spent her entire youth becoming the version of herself that person wanted. Softer, quieter, not too successful, so as not to make him feel small. And now she looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. But slowly, she started taking classes again, changing her style, rewriting the dream she had once buried. A year later, she said, "Turns out I didn't lose anyone, I just found myself again." That is individuation. It's the journey of no longer defining yourself through someone else's eyes. Jung believed the self can only be rebuilt through disintegration. In Psychological Types, he emphasized, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Meaning, you don't need to reject the part of you that loved deeply, sacrificed, or lost yourself. You need to integrate it into the new version of yourself, a version that knows who you are, what you need, and what you truly deserve. The void is only frightening if you believe it's a place of nothingness. But if you understand it as a space of creation, of becoming, of gathering the fragments of your lost self, then the void becomes the place where you first touch the most solid part of who you are. No one else can do this for you. No advice can replace your presence with yourself in this moment. If you're in that space right now, don't be afraid. Be gentle with yourself. Don't rush to be okay, just be honest. Honest about the sadness, the disorientation, and the dreams you left behind. Write down the things you put on hold because of a relationship. Write a letter to the version of you that once was, and then write to the version you're becoming. And each action, no matter how small, waking up 10 minutes earlier, cooking a meal just for yourself, trying something new, is a step toward rebirth. Lesson 7. What you dare to let go of determines what you make room to receive. Some doors only open when your hands are completely free. But if you're still clinging to something, whether it's a memory, an image, a person, or even just an unmet expectation, that new door will remain nothing more than a distant silhouette. Letting go isn't just ending something old. It's a clear declaration to the universe. I'm ready to receive something different. And what you're willing to release is exactly what determines what can enter next. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the process of becoming an individual. He didn't define it as the cliché, finding yourself. To him, it was the courageous act of shedding everything that is no longer truly you, even if you once loved it, clung to it, or thought you couldn't live without it. When you let go of someone who once felt like the center of your world, you're not just losing them, you're dismantling an entire belief system built around that relationship. The belief that your worth depends on being loved, that love must come with sacrifice, that they are my other half. And when those illusions break, pain is inevitable. But if you can move through that pain without turning back, another gate opens, the place where, for the first time, you choose yourself, not for someone else, but for you. I once listened to a woman who said, "I can't let him go because I'm afraid if I do, I'll have nothing left." But a year after she chose to cut ties, she discovered the opposite. It was because she hadn't let go that she couldn't have anything new. Kind people tried to reach out, but she turned them away. Opportunities appeared, and she avoided them, because her mind was still occupied, still worshipping an old image. When she finally stopped, truly stopped, no more checking if he had someone new, no more watching his stories, no more waiting for a final message, something inside her began to breathe again. Slowly, she stopped living to be loved. She began living as though love already existed within her. You might be thinking, "But I'm not ready to let go." I understand. But remember this: letting go doesn't require you to feel ready. It only requires a decision. A decision not to let the past be the only thing shaping your future. A decision not to let anyone else define your worth, except you. Letting go isn't a loss, it's making space. Making space for something more worthy, deeper, more mature, more aligned with who you're becoming, not who you were when you were still tied to the past. So ask yourself, what am I still holding on to? Is it love, or is it habit? Is it connection or illusion? Is it that person, or is it a part of myself I've been too afraid to warned, "Live too long in that mask, and you will lose your true face." For a woman, that mask is not one she chose. It was placed upon her before she even knew who she was. Every good girl praise, every approving glance when she stepped back, every reward for her silence became a layer of cement over her primal face. She learned to smile as if she felt it, to nod as if she agreed, to be gentle as if no fire burned in her chest. She became a sculpture carved by the hands of others, always just beautiful enough, just pleasant enough. But over time, those roles ceased to be mere disguises. They became velvet shackles, soft but binding. She still walked forward, still achieved everything admirable, but in the quiet nights alone, a whisper rose in her chest like waves crashing against hidden cliffs. Is this really what I want? If you've ever felt this, save this to return to as a gentle reminder. And so, life gradually became like a scripted dream where she only needed to deliver her lines on cue. Then, in a moment no one else knows, she realizes she has forgotten her true voice. Like an actress trapped in the same role for decades, performing until she can no longer distinguish between truth and pretense, between her essence and the puppet she's become. She might be a confident leader, a sacrificial mother, a flawless wife. But somewhere beneath that perfect emblem, a part of her no longer wants to play the role. Not because the role is wrong, but because it has ended, and she has never been allowed to step off the stage. That awakening part, Jung called the primal self, unbent by others' gazes, undefined by labels, expectations, or duties. The self does not arrive with trumpets. It returns like a gentle but certain call, like a seed sprouting through a crack in stone, making no sound, but strong enough to shatter what no longer belongs. The first sign is an invisible discomfort. The praise that once made her happy now feels meaningless. The conversations that once brought joy now exhaust her. The relationships that were once her anchor now feel suffocating. No one understands what's happening, not even her. But deep inside, she knows. Something has begun to crack. This is not an age crisis or a delayed rebellion. This is the first step of individuation, when a woman begins to see that she is not what she has tried to become. She starts to notice the discrepancy between her outer self and her inner truth. And that gap causes her pain. Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." Perhaps her true self has appeared long ago, in dreams, in moments of silence, in strange impulses. But she ignored it, because she had to be proper, measured, good enough. Now she begins to hear that voice again, though it's still faint. But once heard, she can no longer pretend she doesn't hear it. Yet shedding the persona is not an impulsive act. It's not about throwing everything away to become someone else entirely. It's a slow, painful, courageous process. And in that moment, the journey of awakening truly begins. She is no longer the admirable woman. She no longer needs to please anyone. She is learning to be true to herself, even if it means disappointing the entire world. In that moment, she is no longer a role. She becomes a question. And in Jung's world, every true question leads to rebirth. Number 2, when she no longer sees glory in success. And then, as the mask begins to crack, something else emerges in a new light. Everything she once craved no longer sparkles as it did. What once made her heart race now feels like a faint echo, like applause ringing in an empty room. No one has stolen her glory. It's still there. Certificates on the wall, praise in emails, congratulations at formal dinners. But it all feels like gold painted on wax, shiny, but cold and lifeless. Carl Jung called this moment the awakening of the soul, a turning point in the journey of individuation. For years, the ego steered the ship, defining her worth through measurable things: reputation, titles, wealth, and admiration. But the ego lacks depth. It only knows how to climb higher, more, faster. Until one day, the soul gently pulls at the helm, asking, "Where are we going, and for what?" At this stage, the woman doesn't collapse. She remains steady. But her faith in the old framework begins to waver. Like a mountaineer who reaches the summit, only to look around and realize, "I've spent decades climbing a mountain I didn't want to stand atop." A vivid real-life example is the singer Demi Lovato, who rose to fame as a young Disney star. In an interview with Teen Vogue, she shared, "I thought, nobody cares. I was isolated. I was lonely. I was essentially miserable. I knew the whole time that they were face wasn't beautiful enough, but because it was never truly hers. From here, the woman begins to understand. True light never dazzles. It glows quietly, gently, burning from within, no stage required. She stops measuring her life by applause. Instead, she begins to listen for what makes her heart still with awe, not with victory. What's crucial to note is this: no longer seeing glory in success doesn't mean losing direction. It's a sign she has reached the edge of a new level of awareness, where the ego is no longer the center, and life begins to revolve around what truly has soul. And perhaps This is when she truly begins to succeed, not in the eyes of others, but in the quiet, honest gaze of her own heart. Number 3. When she begins to face the shadow. But here's the thing. When the old glory fades, it doesn't leave a clear sky behind. It opens a dark expanse where everything she once avoided begins to take shape. And it's in the absence of applause, praise, or clear goals that she sees most clearly what she has spent her life dodging: the darkness within herself. Carl Jung called it the shadow, not evil, but the collection of all the parts we disown: suppressed anger, unacknowledged envy, fear of abandonment, the urge to control, the silent scream of being overlooked. The shadow doesn't vanish just because we pretend it's not there. On the contrary, the more it's suppressed, the more energy it gathers, waiting for the moment the mind cracks to surge forth like a dark tide. For a woman, the shadow doesn't come as a monster from the outside. It arrives as nameless emotions, inexplicable irritation with loved ones, strange dreams, an urge to shatter everything stable, a sense of no longer recognizing herself in the mirror. It might be a day when she's folding laundry and suddenly bursts into tears for no reason, or when she yells at her child, not because they were wrong, but because she's suppressed too much to be the ideal mother, or when she avoids her partner's gaze, not because she no longer loves them, but because she no longer sees herself in their eyes. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the guardian of the gate to maturity. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you don't face the unconscious, it will steer you from the shadows and you'll mistake it for destiny." She realizes that for years, she has lived by burying the wildest, fiercest, rawest parts of herself to earn conditional love. But the cost is too high, for no one can step into an authentic life without daring to face their less than kind parts. At this stage, she no longer easily believes she is good or bad. She begins to see she is both, capable of love and jealousy, forgiveness and unhealed wounds, a gentle mother and a wounded child crying within. This realization isn't comfortable, but it's true. And truth, however ugly, sets her free. Picture this as the phase where she steps into a dark cellar without a light, where each door leads to another version of herself, forgotten memories, moments of humiliation she didn't dare resist, emotions forbidden because they weren't allowed. Sometimes she doesn't want to keep going, but in that very place, she finds the child she once was, the person she was before she learned to pretend, before she learned to live to be loved. She begins to understand no one can walk through her darkness for her. No lecture, course, or book can provide a precise guide. There's only one rule: stay. Stay with herself, even when what arises is anger, painful memories, suppressed desires, or truths that shouldn't be spoken. For in staying, the darkness ceases to be a threat. It becomes a guide. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Enlightenment doesn't come from dreaming of light, but from facing the darkness and bringing it into the light. She doesn't need to eliminate her dark parts. She needs to recognize, name, and connect with them. And from that, the suppressed energy is released, and she begins to feel whole for the first time. And strangely, it's in that darkness that she discovers a strength she never knew she had. A strength that lets her stand firm without performing. without being likable, without always being right, standing as a woman who is imperfect, but true to her core. And that's when the darkness ceases to be an adversary and becomes the most sacred part of her journey to maturity. Number 4, when she stops seeking external validation. Strangely, in that moment, a quiet but profound shift begins to unfold. She no longer needs anyone's approval to know her worth. It's not a rebellious declaration. It's not a dismissal of the world. It's a deep and powerful silence, like an ancient tree that no longer sways to catch the wind, for it has rooted itself firmly. Audience became a temporary balm for her insecurity. At the height of her success, every milestone, every word of praise only deepened a more profound longing, the need to be loved, to feel she existed. Through this process, Oprah realized that trading her essence for approval was a subtle trap. And when she dared to stand and live by her soul's calling, her influence became authentic and unshakable. In Jungian psychology, this is the shift from persona to self, when a person stops defining themselves through external gazes. She no longer needs to be good enough in her parents' eyes, stable in her friends' eyes, or perfect in her partner's eyes. She begins to choose silence when explanations aren't needed, to say no when her heart says no, to withdraw when she no longer feels like herself. This is not isolation, but a quiet kind of inner freedom. She still loves, still connects, but she no longer trades her essence to do so. It's like stopping a dance to external music and moving to the rhythm of the drum beat in her chest. Some people may drift away from her, but that's no longer a tragedy. It's the natural cleansing of the soul. The urge for approval was once a spiritual addiction. Now, she can live without praise, without being understood, without being defended, because, at last, she had chosen to stand on her side. This is the moment her individual will is born, not as a rebellious child, but as a mature, awakened being who no longer hands the power to define her to anyone else. She doesn't need to shout to prove her worth. She only needs to be present, authentically. And that presence, resolute, unadorned, needing no justification, is what makes her strangely trustworthy. People may not agree with her, but they sense the truth in her, undistorted by the desire to be liked. If you're still on the journey to find your voice, stay with us. Content like this isn't meant to be heard and forgotten. It's here to remind you there are women like you awakening. Press like or subscribe if you want to be accompanied further, most gently and truthfully. And then, one day, she looks back at all she did just to be validated and smiles without regret, knowing it's time to thank herself for daring to step out of that circle. This is one of those rare moments in life when you stop trying to be someone in others' eyes and begin to be yourself, even if no one applauds. Number 5. When she meets the inner guide. When she stops seeking external validation, the first thing that emerges isn't peace, it's emptiness, as if all this time she had walked a path lined with signposts erected by others. Now, with no one applauding, no one objecting, no one leading the way, she stands at a foggy crossroads where there's no map, no one to tell her what's right, proper, or appropriate. But it's in that very moment that a new voice begins to speak. Soft, faint, but undeniable. Jung called this the inner guide, a vivid symbol in the unconscious, representing primal wisdom, the archetypal soul that every human carries within. For a woman, it might appear as the wise old woman, the inner mother, or a mature version of herself she never believed she could become. This voice whispers in moments of stillness, between breaths, in a sleepless night, or a strange dawn dream. It doesn't command, but it knows who she is and where she's going. Carl Jung explained this as the emergence of the archetype and the process of individuation. When the masks, the shadow, and the ego have been recognized, the ancient archetypes in the unconscious begin to reveal themselves. This is the part that knows the way when the conscious mind is still lost. A knowing not from books, but from the depths of the soul, accumulated through thousands of generations. This awakening can come from the women around us, not famous, not authors, not powerful. Perhaps a mother who has just gone through a divorce after over a decade of marriage. She doesn't wail or resent, but the days following the separation are eerily silent. Around her pile, empty platitudes, keep going, be strong for the kids, and she, as always, smiles and nods. Until one night, washing dishes in her small kitchen, hearing the steady trickle of water while her children sleep, she feels a pervasive loneliness that is no longer frightening. In that emptiness, a thought flashes, not quite words, but a clear sensation. I've survived everything I thought I couldn't, and I'm still here. It's not a delusion. This is an inner anchor rising from her deepest core, stronger than anything external that ever gave her a sense of safety. From there, she doesn't transform overnight, but she begins tidying her home with a different attitude, as if reclaiming her territory for herself, not just maintaining order for others. She signs up for a class she missed in her youth. She no longer seeks approval to move forward, but starts trusting that quiet voice whenever the outside world falls silent. Meeting the inner guide isn't like finding someone to ask, "What do I do now?" It's about beginning to trust that something within her is still okay, even when everything outside crumbles. It's making decisions based on intuition, feeling, and a deep alignment with her essence, rather than reputation, others' opinions, or fear. Being true to the inner voice is like opening the door to a house locked shut for years. Fresh air rushes in, but so does the dust, the musty smell, and the old wreckage. She cannot choose only the light in this return. The closer she gets to herself, the clearer she sees the broken pieces that have long been swept into an invisible corner. And here lies the greatest challenge of individuation. Can she reach out, lift the parts she was once ashamed of, once despised, without turning away? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Loving the beautiful parts is easy for anyone, but loving the irritating, mistaken, wounded, raw, unstable parts is a journey not for the hasty. The woman who once tried so hard to be accepted by others now faces a more essential question. Can she accept herself unconditionally? This doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come from motivational speeches or a "love yourself" quote printed on a teacup. It comes from mornings of waking up late, seeing a messy house, an imperfect body, failures that can't be blamed on anyone, and not hating herself for it. She no longer reflexively hides from those parts. Instead of thinking, "I must be better," she begins to think, "I am still worthy of love, even when I'm this unraveled." Consider a woman after childbirth who has just given life to a new soul and at the same time is touching a profound threshold of transformation within herself. Her body is no longer something she can control as before. Hormones ebb and flow like tides. Stretch marks, swollen breasts, a widened waist, all silent testaments to a transition both sacred and brutal. But the external changes are only the surface. The greatest collision happens within, where an identity built on agency, control, and competence now faces unprecedented uncertainty, chaos, and fragility. Once she was the model woman, mastering emotions, managing energy, even knowing how to appear radiant in crises. But now, after sleepless nights, tears falling for no reason, and looking in the mirror without recognizing herself, she stands at a crossroads. Continue playing the role of strength, or sit down and admit she's falling apart. When she dares to stop avoiding, to stop holding it together, her body and mind soften like earth after rain. Soft, to breathe, to accept, to stop fighting herself. When a postpartum woman learns to look at her changed body without disdain, to face her wavering emotions without shame, she begins a form of self-love she has never known. A love without conditions, without edits, without needing anyone's approval. She stops trying to go back to who she was. For a deep part of her understands, she will never be that person again, and that is not a loss, but a birth. This acceptance doesn't make her complacent. On the contrary, it frees her from the burden of always needing to be perfect. She no longer measures her worth by her weight, her patience, or what she accomplishes in a day. She begins to measure it by how truly present she is with herself. And when she can be present with her mess, her chaos, her lack of control, she knows she is becoming a mother, not only to her child, but to herself. If you're going through a phase like this, before moving on, take a quiet moment and breathe slowly. This stillness isn't for solving or overcoming. It's for acknowledging that some things only begin when we stop trying to return to who we were. Jung emphasized, wholeness is not about becoming perfect, but embracing all the light and dark within, like the mandala, a circle of inner unity. From here, she no longer acts to prove, lives to be forgiven, or strives to fit an image. Every step, every choice, every mistake is met with eyes of understanding, no longer splitting herself into good or bad. Only a complete human remains, beautiful, flawed, steady, broken, but whole. Number 7. When she returns to the world to serve. Each time she chooses to stay with her imperfect parts, another layer of old armor falls away. She doesn't become more perfect. She becomes more real. And when that reality is strong enough to stand unshaken by others' gazes, she realizes she no longer needs to hide in the room of healing. She is whole enough to open the door and step out, present as a source that has rediscovered its flow. At this moment, a new urge arises. It's not a craving for validation, not a need to prove herself, nor a fear of being left behind. It's something deeper, quieter, yet more powerful. She wants to bring her whole self back to the world to serve. Carl Jung described individuation as not ending when one becomes oneself, but when that self is brought back